Hello, my name is Vinny Maniola with Baltic Networks. I want to thank all of the attendees of the Fiber Connect show for giving us the opportunity to present to you today. First, just a little bit about Baltic Networks. We are a trusted provider of industry-leading telecommunications equipment. We provide best-of-breed solutions to enable our customers to offer high-speed internet access through the methods of their choice, whether that be wireless, fiber optic, or legacy copper in existing buildings. Today, we're going to focus on fiber optic communications, and we're lucky enough to have with us Jeff Burke, Chief Marketing Officer from DZS. And Jeff is going to talk about existing, current fiber optic telecommunications and strategies and the market overall, as well as exciting futures, including 10 gig XGS-PON and beyond. With that, I'd like to introduce Jeff Burke from DZS.
Hi, this is Jeff Burke. I am the Chief Marketing Officer at DZS. And first of all, I wanted to thank Baltic Networks for giving us the opportunity to present here at Fiber Connect. I'm going to be walking through a presentation today that will be focused on 10 gig technology and some of the implications of not only 10 gig over fiber, how you might be able to deliver it over different types of technologies, what the implications of that might be, and some of the drivers that are going on in the market that are actually making this a very, very compelling technology for service providers to be considering at this point in time. So with that, I'm going to go to my slideshow and we'll go from there. So what is happening in the 10 gig world? Well, first of all, let me start by talking a little bit about our credibility as a company that actually can talk about 10 gig services. DZS was actually a company that was formed a number of years ago by the merger of two different regional leaders in technology. Those leaders being DZS Networks, who had a very strategic position in delivering high-end advanced broadband services and mobile backhaul services in the Asia region, and Zone Technologies, which was based in the Americas and delivered a full set of advanced broadband services primarily in the Americas, Europe, and in the Middle East. And with a combination of those two companies, we formed really one of the largest broadband vendors in the world, and more importantly, we formed a company that here in America is actually a clear leader. As a matter of fact, we are the #1 US-based vendor of fiber access technologies. In fact, we actually ship more fiber access equipment in a year than most of our American-based vendors combined. I think that surprises a lot of people, but when I get through some of the details of our customers in the next few slides, I think you'll get a sense of where that is going. Now, as we move from fiber into how advanced that is, we are also the #1 access vendor in the world's leading broadband markets. If you have heard about the fact that South Korea and Japan have not only the fastest networks in the world from a overall country perspective, but also the most advanced applications rolling over them. We are the leading enabler to those in both of those two countries. And of course, the inference is that with that sort of background in advanced applications, we actually have a lot of great experience in getting networks ready around the world to be able to deliver super fast, high-end applications and technology. As far as advanced technologies are concerned, we are the #2 10 gig PON vendor in the world outside of China. So if you look with any vendor across the entire world, we are leading with the delivery of 10 gig technology. And interestingly enough, and we'll talk a lot about this later, that leadership in 10 gig is very important as you start to look at what the infrastructures are required for 5G technologies, mobile technologies going forward. We are a strategic supplier to not only some of the world's largest and most advanced 5G networks, but in addition to that, the world's first Open RAN technology network at Rakuten in Japan is one of our key customers. And as a result of that, I'll talk about this again a little bit later, but we stand in a wonderful position to be able to enable 10 gig technologies and faster to put you in a position to benefit from 5G as it starts rolling out across the North American markets as well. So let's talk about some of the factors that are influencing a movement to 10 gig technologies overall. Let's start at the left here with the cloudification, right? You think about all of these, all of the applications moving into the cloud itself, and analytics are taking place there, platforms as a service, et cetera, is making it more and more important for networks to be suitable and ready for the delivery of applications overall that are based in the cloud, and as a result, putting the network itself in a position to be extremely important, not only with its ability to handle it from a speed perspective, but from a latency and time sensitivity perspective as well. The pervasiveness of fiber overall has really led to this movement to 10 gig. A lot of our customers now are finding that their initial investment in fiber was absolutely the right move for them, but that GPON is now running out of gas with some of their current applications, especially in the business domain, and certainly as they look forward into how they may leverage these fiber networks in the 5G world as well. Data centers and the movement of the data center mentality into the access domain has been a very important driver for 10 gig, primarily because as we move to software-defined networking and network functions virtualization, that leap from either gigabit technologies into 10 gig and faster technologies, or just to leap directly into 10 gig and faster technologies, is that change in the investment in the network that is necessary for you to be thinking about implementing SDN and data center-like functionalities in your network at the time of implementation. So it actually has been a driver and a catalyst for actually doing the same at the same time, movement to 10 gig and movement to SDN and NFV. From a open standards has actually been driving this as well, and this is really a very important element of the movement to 10 gig. If you're going to move to 10 gig, you should be thinking about making sure that you're doing so with a vendor that actually has been following and adhering to these standards that have been evolving, because if you are not, you may be putting yourself in a technology cul-de-sac in the future that will be very difficult to get out of. Connected everything is obviously a trend that is really pushing 10 gig as well. I know in my own home, even just a few years ago, I only had 5 or 6 devices that were actually connecting to the internet overall and drawing bandwidth. And now I think that my last count, I think I was over 40, right? And it adds up quickly when you think about the different PCs that are in your house, the different cell phones, the gaming systems, everything that has to do with streaming video and those sorts of things. And so to that extent, when all of these are contending for bandwidth at the same time, it becomes a very busy atmosphere. And as a result, in combination with new technologies like mesh Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi 6, right, you can see that that movement to 10 gig is actually preemptive to making sure that that your devices are not conflicting for bandwidth and bandwidth attention as they get rolled out to the network itself. And then last but not least, we talked about this already, the advent of 5G technologies and the densification that will be necessary in terms of getting those microcells deployed deeply into the network is going to be a great driver for 5G. Not only because 5G is so bandwidth intensive that it actually will need 10 gig plus technologies in order to enable it, but in order to enable the small radii, right, that are going to be necessary for the delivery of 5G services, you're ultimately going to really need not only fiber, but at least 10 gig speeds deep into that network to be able to enable, even if you're not delivering the 5G yourself, to be a carrier for the other service providers that will actually be going over your network to deliver those into your area. So let's now that we've talked about some of the overall drivers, let's talk about how this actually applies into the overall network itself. We really see 10 gig speeds driven by a variety of factors broken down by mobile, broadband access, and the connected premises, right? We talked a little bit about all of those devices and the connected premises driving contention, but it's just going to get worse as we run into the application of 5G technologies into that same domain. From a broadband access perspective, that leap to 10 gig has actually been we already talked about the necessity today of getting to that point, but it won't be long before we are utilizing the same infrastructure to perhaps take advantage of 25 and maybe 50 gig technologies in the future. And then from a mobile transport perspective, as we move into some of the new infrastructures that will be implemented in delivering 5G technologies, there's no doubt that it's table stakes right now to get to basically have a 10 gig technology to be able to enable these 5G services, and it's only going to go up from there. So let's talk about what we're seeing from a market perspective in terms of 10 gig proliferation today. If you look at this graph here, you can see that starting from this year, 2020 out to 2025, non-next gen, meaning basically either GPON technologies, right, or 1 gig point-to-point technologies are really, still predominant in the market. Although I think it may surprise some to the extent how large the 10 gig market is already becoming, even in 2020, consisting almost 20% of the market overall. But as you look even out to 2022, so just beyond next year, where you see the inflection point, the majority of the ports deployed in networks across fiber are now going to be 10 gig ready or higher, right? And what do we mean by that? Well, primarily we're talking about XGS PON technologies. One of the things I think is important to point out is about 97.5%, right, of the PON deployed right now in 10 gig is XGS PON technologies. Other technologies like NG-PON2 are really only a small fraction of what that market is, and we don't see that changing a lot on a global perspective going forward. So why would you deploy 10 gig other than what we've talked about already? Well, once you get that 10 gig network in place, right, it offers a number of different opportunities for service providers to basically add new revenue streams into their mix. And if you look at the progression up this arrow up and to the right, not only is it for the delivery of just fundamental fiber to the home services, but the real new revenue streams will really come probably from enterprise technologies delivered into small and medium-sized enterprises. Add on to that any campus deployments you might have in your area. Smart cities are going to rely very heavily on this sort of technology, especially as you have things like video and video surveillance, right, and other tech and just other coordinating technologies around the communities that will be driving it. And then, of course, the ability for service providers to really be a carrier's carrier, right, where they're actually acting as the any haul or X haul provider for new 4 and 5G service providers that come into their networks and certainly have to reach deeper into the network to deliver their microcells for the delivery of the services. These are going to be great revenue opportunities for service providers going forward and are fundamentally enabled by 10G technology. So what is DZS doing in terms of pushing this forward from an industry perspective? Well, we are one of the most active vendors in the world, actually, in working with the standards bodies and driving forward 10G services overall. In fact, in this last Broadband World Forum, we were in a situation in which we were one of the primary drivers for pushing the Open Broadband Access Abstraction Project, which this year was focused around leveraging and showing how different vendors, 10 gig technologies can work together and basically be deployed in synchronization in overall networks. We did this in conjunction with some of the world's largest and most advanced carriers too. BT, Vodafone, Swisscom, Telecom Italia, all of these different major carriers. And we were the only US-based company that actually were active in these formal demonstrations around the world. So what are the next steps for 10 gig PON? Well, for starters, we truly believe that 10 gig PON technology is going to be the sweet spot for fiber investment over the coming years, right? Certainly. Whether it be 10 gig GPON or 10 gig EPON, depending on where you are around the world, we certainly see large cycles for companies either leapfrogging directly to 10 gig from their existing copper infrastructure today, or taking that next step in turning their existing fiber infrastructure to 10 gig in the short term. And then of course, with the drivers around SDN being a catalyst for this, as well as 5G fiberization, getting that fiber deeper into the network, it's all going to add together to have 10 gig really be table stakes for what vendors are doing going forward. And let's show you some examples of how this is playing out in the industry overall. These are examples from all around the world of DZS customers that are deploying 10 gig technologies today. Let's start with the Americas. We have a company called Tachus down in Texas. They are a alternate provider, overbuilder in and around the Houston area. They have built a wonderful business case for investing in XGS technology, for going out and delivering not only in select residential communities, but in business parks all over the area, and are seeing their differentiation as well as their business expand very rapidly around that technology. Let's jump into complementary 10 gig technology over in Asia with LGU Plus. We just actually this last year signed about a $66 million deal with LGU Plus to utilize 10 gig for deployment throughout South Korea, right? And as they have done that deployment, they're not only doing this for delivery into a lot of residential buildings, enabling gamers and those sorts of things in those areas, but they've also seen this as complementary to their 5G rollouts around the country. In the Middle East, and in Europe, we're actually seeing a lot of deployment of not PON technologies, but 10 gig point-to-point technologies. I want to be clear too that PON has a lot of advantages in terms of fiber efficiency and deployment, but that doesn't mean that that point-to-point isn't a great solution for service providers as well. I know that there's a wide set of companies across the U.S. that have deployed fiber with point-to-point 1 gig services. DZS is a leader actually in enabling folks to take that leap into 10 gig over that same fiber now. And we're seeing a lot of that activity in Northern Europe with Telia, and as well as in the Middle East with Etisalat. So, all of these are different profiles that we're supporting today, and honestly over the same general infrastructure and equipment in many respects, utilizing combo cards. We'll get into that in a second. Now, from a mobile and 5G perspective, you just look at that graph at the bottom left, and you can see the really the advancement of the rapid number of subscriptions in 5G technologies that are not only taking place here today, but they're really going to accelerate over the next couple of years. As we talked about before, Asia is leading this trend, but it's going to be right in your backyard here in the Americas very, very soon. 10 gig is going to be a fundamental driver for this, for your ability to not only enable this in your communities, but also your ability to profit from it. So we would encourage you to be thinking about that as you're walking through your thought process of how to strategically invest in your network. And then from this slide, we're really looking at the investment in 5G technologies overall. That hot pink part of the chart there is basically emphasizing that as of 2021, mobile transport spend is going to flip into primarily 5G technologies, right? It's here on our doorstep. And certainly from a DZS perspective, we're here to support you every step of the way in helping to enable that. So from a networking perspective overall, DZS is seeing a real strong demand for these converged access networks, right? Not only driven first by broadband, right, but also being driven by how that actually turns into connectivity in the connected premises itself, and also how it supports that mobile transport infrastructure going forward. And our entire architecture and individual systems have been built around really complementing every aspect of being able to do this, not over separate networks, not a business network, an enterprise network, a residential network, and then a separate mobile network, but all converged as one deep fiber network, actually delivering all these services into a business or a home or to a cell tower. So how can DZS help you with making sure that you can deliver these services? Well, we have a full range of products, not only on the OLT side, or the CO and remote terminal side, right? But also on the connected premises side. This is an example of different form factors we have on the OLT side for PON and Active Ethernet. Our MXKF series, the F108, the F219, and the F1419, and one not shown, the F1421, right? Basically gives you an example of a small fixed form factors that many people deploy for just convenience, of slot-based small form factors that have the ability to swap in and out to different functionalities and cards, as well as our large high-density chassis that also can support these as well. As far as the F219 and the F1419 as well, those particular platforms actually have the ability to swap cards in and out themselves, right? And we'll actually, let me give you an example of this. We have a card coming up in the next quarter or two that is actually really a combo card that supports any port, any technology, right? So GPON and XGS PON and Active Ethernet and 10 gig Active Ethernet actually available in any port on the card itself. So as you have demand and grow in your networks, you can drop these in any one of those form factors I showed you before, and it puts you in a situation to actually be successful and really efficient in terms of how your deployment overall works. So let's talk about some of the other options that we have for this as well. We actually have a number of fixed form factor Active Ethernet, both GigE and 10 GigE platforms that you can deploy in your networks as well. As I said, you know, our involvement in 10 gig technology is also world leading as far as point-to-point services. I encourage you to take a look at some of our solutions there. Complementing all this, as we believe, is probably the industry's widest selection of ONTs, right? You know, I think that some areas this is the breadth of that portfolio, but I think more importantly is any point in which you are trying to turn this into invested technologies, from everything being just a pure and simple media converter to something you deploy indoor or outdoor, adding services like RF and Wi-Fi and mesh Wi-Fi along the way, all the way up to services that are reverse powered and those sorts of things in the network. We can cover your needs across that entire gamut very cost effectively and with leading edge technologies, including things like mesh Wi-Fi that can drive obviously new service opportunities within the home, as well as other Wi-Fi 6 and MoCA layered onto those solutions as well. Just to drive a value proposition discussion for DZS as well, you know, one thing that we do distinguish ourselves on is we do not charge recurring annual license fees for operating systems. We are a company that's built a business model where you buy the equipment from us, and when you buy it, we're not there to nickel and dime you on fees over the lifetime. And many of you may be involved with RDOF. This is a very critical thing just for your projects, because we've did some back of the envelope calculations on this, and that you know, if you're doing business with a vendor today that is charging you license fees on a per subscriber basis for the turn up and use of that equipment in your network, over a 10-year horizon, you're looking at nearly $1 million on an average size of a deal in RDOF. That would probably be about 10,000 lines, right? In extra fees over that time in terms of what you would have to pay just for the license fees over and above the equipment. We don't charge you that. So I think out of the gate, we're saving you about $1 million just by doing business with DZS overall. In addition to that, our customer premises solutions have a lot of great unique features that allow you to either on-site or remotely troubleshoot and very easily install new services in your networks. And we encourage you to engage with us to basically get demonstrations of this and learn what the DZS difference is, not only in utilizing these tools, but hey, if you're an RDOF recipient, we believe are the only vendor that has the ability for you to have a very simplified way to utilize our equipment to meet your reporting requirements. So please talk to us about this and look at our services. And are you having a difficult time getting expedited fiber? Our customers actually have a fast track into getting fiber into their networks. Our delivery windows are within 10 to 12 weeks, right? I think that's less than a third of the time, and maybe even faster than most others who are doing it on their own or can achieve right now. So we encourage you to work with us on that front as well. And last but not least, I just did want to share that there are some new programs going on in 5G in the rural America area right now, in which there's a new 5G fund of $9 billion over the next 10 years that's complementary to RDOF and some of the other things going on right now. We encourage you to take a look at DZS for leveraging 10 gig in those situations and in other high-end technologies, because not only do we believe that this is coming and on its way, but you also are going to have some other federal funds that you'll be able to leverage to go out and do some investments on this, and we can work with you in getting yourself ready for that and leveraging our literally cutting edge equipment to be able to allow you to build 5G backhaul infrastructure for your customers. And last but not least, I'll highlight that we are based here in the US. Plano, Texas is where our headquarters are. We have manufacturing in Florida. And we're actually, as I mentioned, the largest fiber-based, American-based vendor of fiber access equipment, and really the only one that's investing right now in manufacturing in the U.S. So that's always another good reason to be working with DZS. So hey, I thank you for your time today. We talked about a lot of different topics around 10 gig. I want to again thank our partner Baltic Networks for allowing us to have this conversation with you. And if you have any questions, we look forward to hearing from you. You can visit us at dzsi.com, right, to get the full look at the portfolio. And I wish you all good luck in making your decisions and moving forward with fiber, and seriously consider 10 gig and utilizing DZS advanced technologies for your ability to do it. Thank you very much.
And thank you again for attending today's presentation. For more information, please contact Baltic Networks.